teammates. As he mentions this, Zero suddenly enters serious mode and tells Court that she has a special lesson for her, and until she learns how to cancel her spells, she is not going back home. She drags the girl along while Seb discovers an interesting book. Outside, Zero makes Court attack her and expects her to cancel her spell at the last moment. Court's spell almost hits her, but she manages to cancel in time, and Zero says that this is satisfactory for now. She tells Hort to practice by using the same high-level spell to light candles in her home. Hort complains that she doesn't have enough magic, so Zero uses the same amount of magic as her, but the result of her spell is much greater. Zero lectures her about trying new ways to use magic when suddenly she collapses because of magic depletion. The students immediately run to her side, and Seb tries to transfer magic by holding hands. That doesn't work, so he suggests a kiss like yesterday, but Zero says that it is not required. She stands up, still staggering from weakness, and claims that a good meal will help her get better in no time. She collapses once again, but Seb catches her, and that reminds Zero of her brother, the Wizard 13. He takes her to her room and tries sharing magic with her again, but it doesn't work. Seb is confused, but Zero tells him that if she wants, she can suck his magic dry. However, his attention suddenly goes to her eyes, which are an exact replica of his. Seb asks her if she knows her mother by any chance. Zero denies that, but claims that she knew his father. Seb had never even thought that he had a father before now, but before he can ask Zero about it, she points out the book he took from the library. Seb says that he took it to help him gather medicinal herbs, and Zero says that he will have a hard time trying to decode it because of the terrible handwriting. He simply replies that his handwriting is pretty similar, and he can understand it fairly well. Zero reveals that Seb's dad was the one who wrote the book. She claims that he was an unparalleled genius, and there may be secrets hidden in the book that only Seb can decipher. Just then, Yohei comes there running with food and thanks Seb for keeping Zero company. He apologizes for not being able to supply her with magic, and Zero decides to tell him something important. She tells him that the reason he and his friends are here is to develop as magic users, but if he doesn't want to be a wizard and prefers to remain a magic supplier, he has no role here. Soon after that, Seb and Leos enter the forest, and while he is initially dazed, he quickly regains his composure and collects useful herbs with the help of the book. They spot a deer carcass before arriving at a patch of red flowers, which is the main herb they need to collect. While Leos is celebrating their find, Seb feels a sinister presence around him. He looks around and finds a throbbing lump of muscles with spikes protruding from it. He tells Leos to get down, but it is too late, and the throbbing lump shoots the spikes outwards with great force. Seb only suffers some cut wounds, but when he turns around, he finds that Leos has been impaled by a spike. Seb panics upon seeing the boy severely injured. He wants to heal him, but since he has never cast a healing spell successfully before, he decides to take him to the village immediately. Seb limps as he runs while carrying Leos, who starts losing consciousness because of the pain. As Leos blacks out, Seb curses himself for not practicing healing magic. He begs someone to help him when suddenly he hears Lou's voice. Seb looks up to find that Lou is communicating with him using a bird made of magic. She tells him to keep moving ahead because Zero is on her way to the forest, and if he hurries, he can still save the boy. Seb gets up and walks towards the village, praying with every step that he makes it in time. Suddenly, Zero and her mercenary come there. Seb apologizes that he couldn't heal the boy, but Yohei tells him that he did well enough on his own. Just then, Lou arrives there and Zero asks her to share some of her blood with the boy to save his life. Lou cuts her wrist and lets a red fountain spout out of it, and then Zero uses her healing power to save Leos. Soon after that, they reach the hospital clinic. Lou passed out because of blood loss, while Zero passed out because she used too much magic. Kubanov has treated them for now, and he tells Seb to stop crying, but his tears seem beyond his control at this point. He tells everyone about the strange monster he fought earlier, and Lou says that it is one of the demonic monsters that the demons created to torment humans. The strange monster disguises itself as prey, and then attacks its target with the blood-sucking spikes that grow into new monsters after some time. Zero believes that the demonic monster must only be found in the north, and if there is one so far south, it must have been brought here on purpose. She sends Yohei to investigate more, but as soon as he opens the door, he finds Hold'em, who has come to do a surprise inspection of the village. The two beastmen go to the church and discuss the details with Dan. Hold'em says that he has heard rumors about someone catching the monsters and selling them off, and the presence of one in the forest proves it. Dan decides to take Lily along and investigate the monster, and Yohei also plans to go to the nearby villages to alert them. Since both the capable warriors are going out of the village, Hold'em thinks that the security of the village will be weak. So Yohei asks him to stay behind and protect the village in their stead, and he reluctantly accepts the job. Suddenly, Zero comes barging into the room and tells Yohei that she's going to come with him. He tries to convince her to back down, citing her depleted magic, but she is his boss in the end. Soon, Holden reaches the hospital and tells the students everything that led to his being in charge of the village's security. After telling them everything, he tells them to run back to their home and is left alone with Lou. Lou is suspicious of Holden's timing, which coincides with the discovery of the monster, but he tells her that it is a mere coincidence because if he had planned to destroy the village, he would have already done so. He then asks her if she cannot do something about the monster herself because he knows that his master only ever relied on her help. Lou recalls Serena, Holden's master, who was her dear friend. Serena died protecting people, and Lou is sure that she would ask her to save the village, which was her dream project. She decides to accept the mission but asks Holden what her compensation would be. He replies that he will plead and beg Albus to let her access the Grimoire of Zero, and Lou gladly takes up the offer. Meanwhile, Seb tells his friends that today he learned that he must work hard to become a wizard, and that is why he needs them to teach them how to cast spells in exchange for getting their magic refilled. Kubido and Hort have no objection, and Hort even asks him to refill her magic supply with a kiss someday, but being a brickhead, he doesn't understand what she wants and shoots down her request. Just then, Holden comes there, and Hort says that she will lead him to the inn where he can rest. He tries to act cool and says that he won't go to the inn with the girl as the village population might increase, and the three students plan to file a complaint with the headmaster about her servant's behavior. Suddenly, Leo's dad arrives there and takes Seb away for a private chat. He knows that it is not Seb's fault that Leo's got injured and he even saved his life, but despite that, the dad does not want him to hang out with his son anymore. As Seb is left alone, someone attacks him from behind. It is the same witch hunter Tyron they fought in the forest earlier. He strangles Seb and knocks him out. Seb's face is tied in a bag, and he is thrown in a speeding carriage where he hears a woman's voice asking him how long he is going to keep his power hidden. Suddenly, his forgotten memories return to him. Seb sees his mother hiding him in a safe spot and warning him to never approach a witch who has eyes like him because she will take everything from him. She locks him safely, but then suddenly, an explosion shakes the house. A power-hungry witch enters through the hole in the wall and tells Seb to come out of hiding if he doesn't want his mother to die. Seb comes out of the secret chamber, but the witch still mercilessly kills his mother in front of his eyes. Seb is left devastated at this, and the witch grabs him to steal his power. She inserts her hand into his chest and grabs his heart, letting his power flow into her. However, before she can take it out, Seb grabs her hand and overloads her with magic. The evil witch somehow takes her hand out, but is too late by then, and she meets a horrible death by being melted alive. Seb screams as he sees those memories, but then Tyron takes off his mask and slaps him to shut him down. He scoffs, saying that he has orders to take him alive this time so he can't do much damage to him. Suddenly, they hear someone approaching them and find that it is Hort and Kudo, who are riding a cart towards them despite the fact that they cannot control horses. They jump off the cart before it crashes and stop right in front of the kidnapped Seb. They freak out upon seeing Tyron here, but Kudo realizes that they must fight him to rescue Seb. He cuts his tail and hands it to the grossed out Hort, who uses it as a spell offering and unleashes the powerful blue flames at Tyron. She does so without incantation, and he doesn't have enough time to block her attack. Not only that, Hort's control has improved, and she burns the ropes binding Seb without harming him. Tyron prepares to fight them, but then Seb suddenly grabs his arm, telling him to not move or he will die instantly. On the other hand, Lou is in the forest to clean up the demonic monster. She puts her staff to work, and it immediately spreads out in all directions. She retrieves all the monster fragments before gobbling them up. Lou is satisfied that the job is well done, but then she comes across a man who is swollen all over because he got stung by wild bees. She takes him back to the village, where she finds Holden lying unconscious. She wakes him up and asks what he is doing here. He suddenly recalls that a man came to inform him that Seb had been kidnapped. Hort and Kudo wanted to help him immediately, and when he tried to stop them, he suddenly fell asleep as if someone had cast a spell on him. Holden panics that the students might be in danger at this rate, but Lou tells him to stop overreacting. She knows that he is the one behind the kidnapping, as it must be the headmaster's plan to create an incident in the village and see if the students can deal with it or not. Holden agrees with her, but then tells her that the problem is that he contracted the fearsome witch hunter for the job. Back in the forest, Tyron just headbutts Seb and trips him to the ground, laughing at his confident words earlier. He crushes Seb's hands with his hammer and then knocks out his friends too, saying that they are still too naive to threaten to kill someone. He then looks at Seb and thinks that since this level of damage can be fixed with magic, his employer will be fine with it. Then, out of nowhere, his hand holding the hammer is cleanly cut, and Tyron is tied by sharp strings on all sides. He realizes that it is the work of the blindfolded priest, but he is sure they saw him leave the village earlier. Dan comes forward from hiding and says that he came back because Lily's mice alerted him that a pest had entered the village. He cuts off all the lanterns nearby, and then, as the moon is covered by clouds, it is dark enough for him to take off his eye patch that hides his terribly sensitive eyes. Dan has the eyes of a wizard, and he cuts both legs of Tyron, saying that this much should be fine because he can be fixed by magic. Tyron gives up, and soon Zero and Yohai arrive there because they feel that Dan will turn the attacker into mincemeat on his own. Soon, Lou and Hold'em arrive there. Hold'em is surprised that Tyron took out all 3 students alone, then Zero asks him what his relation to the criminal is. Hold'em wets his pants and hides behind Lou, while Zero tells him that his life depends on his answer. Everyone goes to the dungeon under the church, and Hold'em says that Tyron was given the task of bringing back 1 student alive from the village if he wanted to be free from his criminal record. Lou realizes that this time the ability of the village to protect the students is being judged. While everyone blames Hold'em for his incompetence, Zero thinks that this test exposed the weak defense of the village. Yoli and Dan think that this situation arose only because they had to deal with a monster and their village lacks fighting power. Yohai believes that they can protect their village just fine, but when they try to cover for other villages, it becomes a problem. Zero knows that they can't abandon the other villages or the reputation of their witch village will go down. Amidst the confusion, Hold'em gives her an idea and tells Zero to use Tyron if she wants some extra fighting power. Tyron says that this was not part of the deal, but Hold'em tells him that he failed the deal already, and if he wants to live, he should do as he says. Zero accepts this suggestion, but the next day, when she tells the students about it, Horde opposes it with all her might. She believes that Tyron may betray them at any moment, and he should be executed. Zero tells her that it is fine if she wants revenge, but that she will just be perpetuating a cycle of hate between the witches and ordinary people. She explains that Tyron has committed many sins, but he is being given the chance to atone for them by protecting the village. Hort says that Tyron has killed many innocent people, but Dan tells her that when he worked for the church, he also killed anyone he was ordered to, no matter who they were. Lou joins in saying that her staff has also taken the lives of many witches, and that means she should also be executed. Hort cries that it is not like that, and after being pressured from all sides, she decides to cancel her appeal for Tyron's execution. Instead, she wants him to live under the constant supervision of Yohei, and decides to keep an eye on him when they work outside. The next day, Hold'em leaves the village and offers Lou to come with her to the Forbidden Library in the north. She refuses his offer, saying that right now she is more interested in witnessing the growth of her students than the Grimoire of Zero. She returns home with that and finds Seb telling Hort that his memories have returned. He explains that they are terrible memories and he doesn't feel like he remembered them naturally. Seb says that he still doesn't feel like a proper person even with the memories because he doesn't understand human emotions. He reveals that Lou told him about Hort being in love with him and the girl turns red from embarrassment. Seb, however, doesn't understand how it feels to love someone and he desperately wants to know that. Hort says that it feels like the person you love is special and Seb tells her that she is special to him too. She replies that it doesn't mean he loves her and decides to give him some more indicators. As Seb thinks about them, he recalls his moments with Lou and says that he might actually like her more. Hort feels heartbroken, but she still tells Seb to rely on her if he needs some love advice. After that, she asks him to refill her magic, but as Seb is about to do so, the memory of the witch melting from magic overdose pops up in his mind. He flinches and tells Hort that he cannot give her any magic, and then runs away to see Zero. He is anxious as he enters her house, but quickly calms down as he sits for tea. Seb tells her that his memories have returned for no reason, but Zero believes that it was because his life was in danger. She is relieved that he is not shaken up by the harsh memories so much and states that it is because he is no longer an empty shell. She comforts Seb, telling him that he must confront those harsh memories and win against them if he wants to grow strong enough to protect everyone. Seb then tells her that his mother told him to stay away from a witch with the same eyes as his. Zero smiles and her eyes glow as she reveals the secrets behind their similar eyes. She tells Seb that his father, Wizard 13, was her brother, and they both inherited these eyes from their father. Seb is surprised to hear this, and his eyes glow in resonance with his aunt's. Zero tells him that 13 was her only family, and he would have done anything for her, and Seb's birth is related to that too. She reveals that her magic was depleting rapidly, so 13 found Seb's mother and had a child with her because their combined genes would give birth to a wizard with limitless magic. He planned to offer that power to Zero, but Seb's mother caught wind of it and ran away with her son. Zero says that the pain he experienced was because of her, but Seb says that it was not her fault. He even credits her for being the reason for his birth, and Zero laughs, saying that he has inherited the best qualities from 13. Seb says that he wants to learn more about his father, and Zero says that he was thoroughly rational, which is what led him to start the war for a world ruled by witches. After learning that, Seb tells Zero that this morning he hesitated to supply Hort with magic because he feared she might die. He claims that he wants to keep being her magic supplier, and that is why he came to ask Zero for help, because even if he gives her some extra magic, she won't die. She smiles and stretches both her hands towards Seb, telling him that they will practice circulating magic to improve his control. He takes her hand, and they start circulating their magic when they hear someone scream. But Zero doesn't let Seb go, stating that he must master his control over magic before trying to help anyone. Meanwhile, Lou goes to the pond and decides to forget that she heard Seb say he likes her. However, Hort appears behind her just then and says that Seb likes her. She freaks out on hearing that and tumbles into the pond before telling Hort that she should snitch about someone else's feelings. Hort asks her if she's going to leave them now because she has heard that witches run away if their students fall in love with them. Lou affirms, but as Hort hugs her and begs her not to leave, she promises not to go anywhere until the special training ends. Suddenly, they hear Kudo's scream coming from the hospital. They reach the hospital quickly and find that a fight broke out there. Kudo is injured while Tyron has pinned down the boy Lou rescued in the forest last night. Hort tells him to let the boy go, and he obeys, but the boy immediately grabs a shard of glass and lunges towards Lou, who simply uses Ludens to knock him out. Later, the boy is restrained, and Kudo says that he was probably sent by the church to cause trouble here. Suddenly, a woman comes there and asks Kudo not to speak as if the entire church is evil. Lou recognizes the red-headed nerd as Heartful, the village school teacher, who came here to bring lunch for the patients. She gives Tyron his lunch and even gives one to the unconscious boy. Heartful pities the boy whom the heartless extremists sent here, but Lou believes that he was just bait to see how they would react to hostility. While Kudo, Lou, and Hort discuss how to handle the boy, Heartful approaches Tyron and tries to teach him some table manners. He doesn't care about that because the only manners he needs are how to kill his targets. Heartful tells him to stop acting like a gangster here because no one in the village will be afraid of him. He tries to test it out on her by strangling her, but Lou quickly points her weapon at him, and he backs down, despite Heartful claiming that it was nothing serious. Shigen volunteers to show Tyron around the village, and soon after they leave, Yohai arrives there. He decides to cancel his plans to torture the attacker after seeing that he's a mere boy, and Kudo lashes out at him, saying that he shouldn't torture criminals, even if they are adults. Yohei doesn't see a point in arguing and says that he will leave the boy with Dan, who will extract information using his means. Hort says that the priest can really use verbal torture, but then something comes flying towards her, and she blocks it at the last moment. It was thrown by Dan, who is not happy that she was trash talking behind his back yet again. He then notices that the boy has been awake for a long time and has heard everything they talked about. The boy opens his eyes and lunges at him, but Dan simply grabs his neck and slams him against the bed. He turns him around and then sits on him, telling him to recognize his position. He then asks Lou to make the room darker, and she uses the power of her staff to make it dark as night. Dan removes his eye patch and looks straight at the boy, telling him that he will ask some questions now, and if he lies, he will know. He asks the boy if he is alone, and if someone will come to rescue him. Just by judging the tiny movements of his face muscles, Dan can tell when he is lying and when he is not. Afterwards, he tells Lou and Yohei that they didn't get much information from the boy. However, Lou believes that if a monster was sent along with the boy, it means that someone quite powerful within the church is involved. And since the mastermind must use better pawns than the boy he just sent, it means that there is something shady going on in secret, which they must uncover for the safety of the village. Hort listens to their conversation, and she is not happy that the adults are deciding everything on their own. She walks around the village aimlessly and decides to stop by the school, where she sees the shocking sight of Tyron teaching the kids to weave baskets. She asks Heartful what is going on, and she replies that Tyron is making traps to hunt fish. She claims that he is just a big man-child who tries his best to scare her every moment he gets. As Hort sees Tyron play with the kids, the memories of him killing her friends surface in her mind, and she feels confused and hurt. She doesn't want to leave a killer like him alone with the students, so she decides to keep an eye on him. However, the students are not afraid of him, and Heartful says that she is teaching them not to be afraid of anything without proper reason. On the other hand, Kudo gets a message from Lily's mouse that the boy's transfer to the north has been postponed. He scoffs at that and decides to take him somewhere. On the way, the boy complains that this was his chance to die like a hero.